episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, hello. How y'all doing? Isn't this rain nice? I got the Debbie Beeman here from Promises Community. We got a lot to talk about, as always.
Good morning.
Yeah, and finally some water hit my yard other than my tears. My yard's dead. It'll take a while for it to come back, but at least it's getting some water. And, but we really did need this rain badly.
Amen.
And thank you, Lord, because we needed it. I always like the fall better than the summer anyway, because summer, just this last one was just hard.
Brutal.
Yeah. Even, a lot of the out-of-towners that come in and it's,
yes.
Wow, how do you handle this? I'm like, well, this is hard even for us.
Mm-hmm.
Texans are kind of used to it, but this was a hard one. So
Yes.
anyway, we're going to talk about what's going on at Promises and Burleson overall. As always, the need just continues to grow, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah, it's just going up. It seems like just in a nice tall trajectory every month. Every time we visit, it's more than last month.
Very much. We trend that at Promises, and certainly that is what we've been seeing over the last really about 12, 13 months.
That must be really a strain on the resources and all that. And we'll be talking a lot about that. Also, I talked about some of the things I read prior to the show. We were talking about the economy and all this other stuff. And so we're going to kind of talk about that in a more global manner, because what we're experiencing here, they're experiencing even more so in a lot of other areas of the country.
Yes.
It's, we'll try to keep the politics out the best I can. Here I'm going to try to get this all shared with all this voodoo I have to do on Facebook. But let's go ahead and talk about our sponsors and make this possible. Thank you, friends, over at CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire, behind the Stone Soup Cafe and Valet Dry Cleaners and all that. So thank you for your sponsorship. They have plans, they have programs, they have classes, they have memberships. Go and check it out if you're looking for a serious workout and not just for, posing in the mirror. It's just, then you got other places for that. Anyway, thank you also to Shandy Stocksdale at the Stocksdale Group. They're closing this week or next. I'm not quite sure. I haven't talked to Shandy this week, but I know she was working on a closing, and that helps. The real estate market has cooled off a little bit in Burleson, but it's still moving, whereas in some parts of the country, it's just stopped because of the rates and whatnot. Also, you have people that are not wanting to sell as quickly as they used to, so there you are. So Shandy, I'm trying to get her on the show, but she really is pretty busy, so I'm going to get her on the show and talk about the rates and whatnot, probably sometime in October. Also, thank you to Otto, of course, at our place. It's always a great place to go do business, go place for lunch, breakfast, dessert, whatever. They make their own pie, so you can go there, have a little coffee and pie this afternoon or something along those lines. Well, they'll give you pie at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'll bet. So our place, thank you, Otto, for all you do for our community. Thank you also to Chris and Nathan over at Wild Cigar and Culture. They also are very active in the community. They sponsor certain things, like some of these fundraisers for nonprofits. Speaking of which, Debbie, you going to be here next week, next Thursday?
Yes.
Okay, good. For the special nonprofit show.
Yes.
All right, Wild Cigar and Culture over at the Standard. Also, Tiffany Nico with Local Life. The magazine is out, and you can check it out, and goes to 30,000 homes. It is a very, very good way to get direct marketing straight to your home or your business. It's print. They say, oh, everybody does online. Not everybody. I mean, they get a lot of response from print ads, so it's still very viable business. Thank you also to Cody O'Brien at the Burleson Buzz. He's doing really good stuff there. He writes articles about some of the local institutions. Also, he writes about the city council meetings, school board meetings, and whatnot. So subscribe if you'd wish. It's very affordable, and you'll get all the inside story about what's going on with our city. All right, now to the first round. I was mentioning this to Debbie prior to the show. I read about 2 weeks ago, actually, earlier this month, that it now costs on the average a family $709 more per month than it did 2 years ago. And you see this in real time, don't you?
We do. And I believe that. It is amazing, the increase in cost and how many people just are living on that edge. Actually, I heard this week on the radio, 61% of America lives one emergency away from homelessness.
Right.
And those numbers are easy to say, but they're hard to comprehend the magnitude of that. Running a food bank or whatever, people come in. Something that addresses that, Brad, is, we have a self-select pantry, and we have grown so much that now we have clients who will sit in our lobby for upwards of 25 minutes so that they can self-select and shop for things because they know they'll be able to select of what they want versus getting a box full of food that they might not want.
Yeah.
But they're so desperate for things that their family will use, whereas used to they were get me in and get me out. And now they're waiting around.
Now, on this self-select, is it just one customer per time, visit? No, let me rephrase that. You only allow one person at a time in the self-select area, or do you have several people at the same time?
We have several.
Okay, that's what I meant to say.
Ours is a size that we can't really allow more than about 4.
Right.
But they have a host shopper. So one of our volunteers goes with them around the shopping area. And the size of it allows us a good 4, sometimes 5 people that can shop at one time. But we're getting in. It is not uncommon to have 6 of them that come in through the door within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So we were seeing just under 200 a month at the last of 2021,
Right.
and we are now seeing 450 average per month. So that's more than double
Right.
what we were seeing. And all of this has come as the supply chain has hit these charities, both the food banks as well as the food pantries that are in Johnson County, I'm sure everywhere, where we have had a harder time getting food on our shelves. So it is a critical mess. And we're on the end that is trying to provide to people who desperately need it because they can't absorb $709 more.
It's hard for people
Absolutely.
with full-time jobs even.
Absolutely.
Or if you're working hourly or you're working, sporadically, it's almost
Right.
impossible. But I just was wondering if you have this waiting list of people waiting, and one person goes in, and then they're given a certain amount of time and certain amount of like an allowance, if you will. But you say you do accommodate about up to 4 to 5 people maybe at a time.
Yes.
Well, and I'm pretty sure that it's pretty consistent 4 to 5 people at a
Yes.
time. Because our friend Dave Thompson, who works with
Yes.
y'all, tells us in our Sunday school class about just how many people. Like in July, he said it was over 700 people.
Yes.
And then I'm sure August was probably pretty close, if not higher.
I
And
want to say it was within 3.
within 3 people, okay.
Of being the same amount.
Oh my! And then you have September, and the thing is, it's just like this can't be sustainable
No.
as a society, as a community. This can't be sustainable for long.
I agree.
And I don't really know how it's going to end. I try to avoid political conversations when I have nonprofits on, but they're going to have, the political side of this is going to have to step up its game and do better.
I agree.
And regardless of what partisan party you want to claim to be part of, it's all got to be better. And I just don't know if we have men and women in Washington in particular that is interested in that.
I worry about that all the time because we have a very generous community. I think Johnson County is generous.
Right.
But the reality is those who have are also seeing that $709. And so their available money to donate to help these charities is certainly struggling as well.
Yeah, I've heard from others, your peers and such, that donations are down in terms of monetary donations. As far as like food donations, it's ticked up some, but it's still being outpaced by the demand.
Yes.
And that's what happened with y'all? Is that
Yes.
happening with y'all?
Yes, and it is getting better. Just over the last month, it has been significantly better. We've had some places that have been letting us order some bulk orders. So that is definitely better. As long as you keep it before them, as you know, at our church, we will make announcements, and we always see an uptick in donations of actual food.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Dave,
is
Dave
very-
makes sure we
Yes.
fill that bag up.
Yes, our volunteers are top notch, and we couldn't exist without them. But they are very good at taking that message out to the church.
Well, y'all do have, because I'm part of the church as well, we do have an advantage because we have a source of funding. I don't know how adequate it is, but at least there's a source. But a lot of the others that rely mostly on the community donating on the online and things like that, they struggle. One of the things I'd like to talk about at some point with you and your peers as a group is talk about how do you deal with your own personal stress over this issue? Because I know you probably have driven home sometimes thinking, God, I don't know how we're going to open the doors tomorrow, or we have enough food on the shelves. And then something usually happens, God provides, but still you want to have faith and be strong in it, but still you fret. It's a human condition.
I do think that it is becoming a greater issue for all volunteers, not just those who lead, but a part of my job is talking to those who are seeking assistance. And, there are some days when definitely you leave and think, how can we make a difference in these lives? Because it's one story after another of just tragedy and things that have happened.
Right.
And, we try to target not just handing out, a $100 bill, so to speak, but doing something that is impactful to help change the trajectory of their life. And I would agree. It can wear on you no matter your faith, no matter what you believe. And I do believe that God provides. But it is we are in a time where it is just difficult because everyone seems to be struggling.
Well, when you talk about these stories, I know you're not going to be specific, but generally, I'm sure they fall into certain categories. What kind of stories are y'all hearing that causes this situation to exist?
One of the most frustrating to me, because trying to find a way to resolve it, is we are seeing, the baby boomers are a large part of society and all the things that go along with an aging generation. But we have a number of mostly women. We do have one man that I have, but they have some level of dementia or mental capacity limits that make it very difficult to counsel, mentor, or help to give them guidance, because they will sit before you and say, okay, and then they walk out and they forget they even talked to you.
Now, when you say dementia, that's associated with older people. Are you seeing mostly older people?
No.
Okay, dementia.
We do see mostly older than 55, but we're not talking the 75, 85 crowd, although we do have some of that.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is more the 55 to 65 crowd, and have one that talked with, prayed with, and thought we were together, didn't really pick up on the dementia. Next thing I know, she's turned in her key to her apartment, just left, and left what she had, has no ability, no place to stay, and now is desperate because there's nothing else out there at the cost that she had.
Right.
And they're not going to rent her back the same place for what she had.
No.
So those type of things are most frustrating to me, because I'm aware they're living in their vehicles, and because they feel safer in the vehicle than they do in night shelters.
Right.
And that crushes me. I don't have a way to fix that. And it's very difficult to fix because you can't reason with a mind that can't reason.
Well, see, in my mind, when I think about what you're saying about your clients, I'm thinking of maybe single mothers in their 30s, early 40s, stuff. You get those as well, right?
We do. And some of those are not as, they will have issues, definitely have issues where they'll come and seek help, or they'll come and just say, I'm out of diapers. Can you provide me diapers? That type of thing. They usually do ask for some financial help at some point during the year. But most of them we can talk with and tell them, look, let's look at how you are spending your money and help them to do that. Because some of them have been thrown out there as single moms and have no experience at doing that. It had been done for them by a spouse. Excuse me. So I think that that's a little bit easier to try to counsel through than the increased amount that we're seeing that are going to their vehicle and living, which is dangerous. It's unhealthy.
Yes, that's true.
And so those have been some of the greatest frustration, because the number of them is growing.
Our friend Jennifer Woods over at Harvest House has this very same story, about all these, the growth of the demand and people living out of their cars and things like that. I've been, because of the conversations you and I have had, she and I have had, Lisa Schwartz has had on the show, it's like, I've become more attuned in the media looking for those kind of stories.
Right.
And I see it happening all over. New York, they're complaining about the migrants moving in. It's like, welcome to Texas,
Right.
in my opinion. I mean, that we've been dealing with that for a long time.
Right.
And then you see all this stuff going on in Massachusetts and Illinois, and they're like, now it's become a reality to them. And this is a reality we've always had to deal with.
Right.
And also about the housing issues. It's like, a lot of these communities are very restrictive about not only single family homes that be in a certain size and all that, but also multifamily homes. And next week, when I have Victoria and Adam Russell on here, I'm going to ask them these questions. I mean, we're going to talk most about taxes, but I want to ask them about, we got to do something.
Right.
Because this is not sustainable.
Right. We do have a whole lot of that, and Jennifer and Harvest House and I have partnered together on some of these ladies. Burleson Police Department has been involved, even to help some of these ladies get moved in once we can help to get them housing. But it is a major issue, and we've even looked at, one of them came from up in, I want to say it was Michigan, but she has better options up there than she does down here. We offered to try to get her back there because this area is short on low income housing and getting them in a place where they can afford, or the assistance of that, because the backlog of that is about 13 months.
You're right. Good heavens. I mean, so he could get on the list and wait over a year then.
Yes.
I don't know how to resolve it. It's not going to be painlessly resolved. Okay.
I agree.
Because it's going to cost money, and it's going to basically have to change certain attitudes about, I don't want that near my house kind of thing. And that's going to be very difficult to do.
Yes.
And, but I just think we're going to get to a point here in Burleson, like many other communities, that it's going to be so noticeable. It's not going to be something that people can avert seeing.
Right.
We see the people on the corners and we think it's an, specific thing. This person is asking for money. But I think we're going to get to the point, like what's happening like at downtown Fort Worth or something like that, where you're getting accosted routinely.
Yes.
And they're getting pretty bold
Aggressive,
in their demands. Yes. And I think we're going to start seeing that in Burleson.
Yes.
As I don't know if urbanizes what we're going through, but we're not a spread out country town. I think you're going to start seeing that in Old Town. You might see it in some of those areas where they're developing all the restaurants, like on Wilshire.
Yes.
You may see it at Gateway Station or the Commons, over the west part of town, where people are actually congregating.
Yes.
And I think when that gets to that point, then I think it'll become real to Burleson what's happening.
I do think it's going to be. And when I'm out and about during the day, I can't remember the last time I went through the intersection at 1187 and 35 without seeing them on the corner.
That was actually what I was thinking about. I go through that to get to here.
Yes.
And today there wasn't anybody because I guess the weather. But I mean, it's almost 90% of the time I see them there. And then quite often I see on the other side, on the west side of 35 and 1187. And you go into Fort Worth, and just about every major corner, there's a couple of people working it.
Yes.
And I think when you start seeing that, like on Renfrew and Wilshire, or you start seeing it on Wilshire and John Jones, then I think the reality, what you and I have been talking about for months, is going to become more real to the people of Burleson, that this is not normal, and this is not what we want for our society.
Right.
And we all have a choice how we react.
And it's here. It used to be that Burleson didn't have that as much, but it is absolutely right here in this neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely. I hear, I think, I don't see any tent cities or, people, mass little groupings of people living in shelters or tents or whatever. And then people will contact us and say, no. They found a tent city over in some creek wooded area here in town or behind some store. There was like a grouping of people, camping out there. And so it is happening here.
Yes.
And I think people need to wake up. I mean, it's not like these people are all dangerous, but some of them that are out in the street are not mentally stable, and that proposes a danger for us.
Absolutely. Have dealt with some of those, and dealt with some that lived in a creek that ran behind a very nice neighborhood. But yeah, they were down there, and there was also one over by Miranda's off 35 that they had made a little tent city, and I know the police went out and push them along. But there is definitely issues. I did hear that there was some, and I want to say it was Fort Worth, Brad, where they were talking that landlords could no longer deny rental to Section 8 housing,
Right.
which, may help to shorten that wait time for a home. But I don't know that that's done, because I can imagine that that's probably going to be appealed.
Well, who issued that order? Was it the city of Fort Worth?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't like a federal thing.
No, it was not federal, but I think that's a big argument. Like you said, people don't want it in their neighborhood.
Well, and I'm not totally unsympathetic to that argument, because people say, "Well, do you want a homeless shelter out by your house?" And no, I don't. But
Right.
that doesn't mean that we don't need to have one. We can find some sort of way of solving this problem without going to extremes. I mean, I don't have any beef with somebody who says, I don't want that near my school or my children go to,
Right.
or my business, which will scare away customers. I mean, those are legitimate concerns. There has to be a solution to this. And I don't know if some of the solutions that the government has offered have been working.
Right.
You know what happens with Section 8 housing and other types of subsidized housing is the rent goes up.
Right.
Because it's say, well, you're getting $200 a month from the government, so I'm going to raise your rent $100.
Right.
That kind of thing. Every time the government subsidizes anything, the producer of it will take a piece of that action by raising their prices, like they did with the electric car credits. Ford and GM raised the price of their electric vehicles a bunch, so to take advantage of that and that kind of thing. So
I don't know all of the answers. I do think that there needs to be some type of mentoring or education that needs to go along with that, because some of them, it's not a lack or desire to not fit in the neighborhood, so to speak. It's a lack of, how do I do that?
they don't have the social skills, right?
Exactly. Or might not have the resources to do so. The reality is, if I'm going to mow my yard, I need a mower, I need gas for the mower, or some type of electricity for it, or God forbid, a lithium battery that could cost a lot to put in it.
Exactly.
So, it's things like that I think there's too much of well, and you said we're going to keep politics out of it. I guess it's politics.
You go ahead.
But I think we do too much of throwing money somewhere and not following through with how that's going to be used and managed. And I think if we did more in that area, it would at least help.
Well, and when the government throws money at it, the politicians pat themselves on the back.
Yes.
And then when it's failed, the answer is put more money in it.
Right.
I've talked to a couple of people in the education field, and they are seeing more kids arriving, obviously, that slept in their clothes, or they haven't taken a shower or bath. When I was teaching at BHS, that was uncommon, not unknown, but uncommon, and quite often, the teachers themselves would do something about it. I remember one young man obviously needed a shower, and so one of the coaches took him down. Took him a shower, and they gave him a shower at the locker room, and they also washed his clothes where they washed the uniforms.
Right.
It was the same clothes, but at least he got them washed. Right?
Exactly.
And I read a really good article about it. It said maybe these schools ought to have a laundromat. Yeah, and something like that.
Right.
But people want to dump everything on the schools and try to make them work and make them medical clinics and hostels or whatever else. And but I thought, but that's how we handled it.
Exactly. I think that education can be beneficial even for me. I don't have children. Didn't know how much some of that went on in schools. Had been hearing from teachers and stuff, and we had a campaign to collect socks for our First Blessing charity that we do. And
is that your phone?
Yes, and I thought I had silenced it.
So
it's I am right. Very, very sorry.
No problem. It happens all the time. And what happens? My diabetes thing goes off in the middle of the show sometimes. So
it's it's like that person in church that has it happen. But I. Even forgot, I guess now what we were talking about.
Kids in school.
Kids in school. And so we had done a collection, and I had a big tub full of socks. and donated that to BISD because I found they do that all the time, especially in elementary schools. A child will come in and not have any socks or have an accident, whatever. But my point is, I got educated on some of what was going on because I had no clue. I don't have children and didn't know that was happening. So now that I know, when I have some of those things, or we've, through different avenues gotten clothes, we try to put those in the hands of people who can do that, because I think it's great that you give them a shower.
Right.
We just need to have a plan for that. And I know the city has been talking about it in Burleson. I'm sure others are. I just feel that we do more talking, and we need to get to where we start doing something, whether it's solves it all or not. At least it gets us making steps towards it.
Eventually, I'm going to be talking with BISD personnel. I let Michaela Hill over the communications department dictate the guests because they want to promote certain things. But one of the things I did have last year, and I probably will again this year, is the mental and physical health of our students. And
Yes.
I talked to Courtney Peets, who is a head nurse for the district. I think when it's her turn, we're going to focus on that part because, I've had friends that taught in schools a lot tougher than BHS. In fact, last night my wife and I had dinner over at Fish City with the Saucier family, and Mr. Saucier was a teacher at Polytech for several years. And he has stories that make mine look like Sunday school. All right, and so what we're seeing here in BHS Centennial at the elementaries is exponentially worse in inner city schools.
Yes.
But I don't know, we're heading that direction, but we're not going to be immune to it. We're going to get more of it. And unless we are proactive
Yes.
and thinking greater than just, well, I gave a box of cans to the Harvest House or to Promises, it's going to take a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's going to take a real commitment, financial and otherwise.
Right.
And will City of Burleson step up to that? I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been offered to them like that as an option. Because we're so used to working through y'all
Right.
or churches and other nonprofits and things like that. I don't know ever been laid in front of them. Here's an option for the city to be involved in it, or
Right.
the school district to be involved in it. I wonder what kind of reaction that would get.
I don't know. I think it would get a good reaction.
I hope so. Yeah.
I think that there is just the need for that. And I do think that it is growing and expanding. Last week, I was invited to a dinner by Many Mansions. I think I mentioned them to you before.
Yeah, they're out of Glenrose, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And, they are trying to get established in Johnson County. They feel God is calling them here. They have a focus on single moms. And the more that we can do that and get word out about that, I think that helps. And so it is being done. There were churches there. CPS was there. Crazy Eights was there. Promises was there. So, I think they're doing right by pulling in people and saying this is something that we're willing to offer the county because they've been in Somerville or Hood, but not in Johnson.
Okay, can I stop for a minute?
Yes.
If it's possible, if they want to come into Johnson County, can you hook me up with them? I'd like to talk with them on the show.
I will.
You have my contact information. Give it to
Yes.
whomever needs it. And if they're moving to this direction, because we talked about this before, but I said, I don't know if my show reaches that far to Glenrose. I can't tell you how many listeners, if any, I have out there. So, but if they're going to be moving to this, the Cleveland, Burleson, Joshua area, let's get them a slot.
Absolutely. Because I am aware, I've referred some people to them. They've done some wonderful, wonderful work, wonderful Christian charity. So I'll be happy to do that. We invited them on September the 23rd. Promises is having a community event called Nourish and Flourish, where we're trying to get word out. And we'll have people like Aetna and Humana and Cook Children's, and we'll have Golden State Foods, who has some job openings, that we're inviting them to try to let the community know here's opportunity for you to have things that meet your needs, because we know the needs are great, and Many Mansions will be there. So I will make sure that I talk to Amber and that they get in touch with you.
Okay. We're going to do the second round of commercials. I want to talk about that Nourish and Flourish a little bit, and we can promote that certainly. But anyway, speaking of promotions, thank you, Southern Jim. And Gayla, she had a nice little chamber event Tuesday night, and it's a very nice store. It really is. And it was well attended by a lot of the chamber members and whatnot. So I've been telling people, you need to get in contact with her now if you want her to do some design or you want to do some repairs for Christmas. Because if you wait until like early December, you might miss Christmas Day, because they got last Christmas, they get a bunch. And they work, my wife, who works there, they were working extra hours and all this other stuff. And but it's better if you can get it in now. But Southern Gym on the bottom floor of the Windmill Building next to American Revelry. And it's that time of year again already. Also, thank you to our friends at Old Pro Roofing at John Williams, 817-734-2756. You'll come check your roof out. It's a good time to know if your roof is leaking or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always like, oh, my roof was fine until it rains, and then it's not so good. But most roofs will be okay. It's a good thing to have them inspected. All our insurance friends will tell you the same thing. So give old John a call. Also, thank you to Thrive. They are designed to present your business to the community in all the different ways it can. And they handle like your email, handle your social media, they handle a lot of your postings. They also have a business center that can handle your the business aspect of your company, and so they like that. I'm going to have Dee Dee on the show. I was going to have her on in a couple of weeks, but she told me yesterday she has a conflict in schedule, so I'll have her on pretty soon. But anyway, call Dee Dee Simpson over at Thrive, and she'll take her number is 520-955-7860. Let me say that again because I was reading and it got glare on me. 520-955-7860. And it's really it really is very helpful. A lot of people on BNI use it. Also, thank you to, speaking of BNI, Lisa and Moore Smith, Always Top Restoration. If you do have a leak in your roof and it causes water damage, you want to talk to them. Or biohazards. She showed me some pictures a couple of weeks ago at our BNI meeting of what a biohazard is. And it's like hoarding, and people just not throwing away their trash in the house, and remains of animals and crap, and it just that's a mental illness certainly to live like that, and so they had to go in and clean one of those up, and the before and after pictures were very striking. So give Morris and Lisa a call if you need some sort of environmental cleanup, or you have water damage. It may not even be a environmental issue, maybe your hot water leak going on, or toilet leak, and it's causing mold in your back wall. They get a lot of business about showers, leaking behind the wall and that kind of thing. Also, talking to Candy Gow, 817-925-2661 over at U Mortgage, which is here in town. U Mortgage will help find you the best rates. They don't work for a mortgage company. They will expose you to all of them and tell you what the best rates are and whatnot. And Candy, I saw her yesterday, the rates are not going to come down tomorrow, but you need somebody that knows what they're talking about to help you navigate through all of this. Okay, right before this little commercial episode, you mentioned Nourish and Flourish. Tell us all about that again.
Promises and Harvest House decided to come together and do what we are calling Nourish and Flourish. Because of all that's going on and how hard it's been for us to keep food on the shelves. Used to, if somebody came more often than they were supposed to, we just went ahead and handled that. And we are to the point now that we're having to say, you're welcome to come every 30 days, but there are 25 other pantries that you can go to and try to encourage them to do that. A lot of them don't know about those, even though we make available to them a list of it. So we wanted to get something out there that says, we know you're struggling. Here are some things that can help you. A lot of our clients have Medicaid or Medicare, and a lot of them have SNAP or want SNAP, and they struggle to get through the government process to get into those. And so we decided that it would be good if we could provide something that says, here's opportunities for you for food, because technically here in Johnson County, they could go to enough of those 25 locations that they could get food every week, even though they might be coming to Promises once a month. And so we want to try to educate them about that. And then we do have Aetna and Humana who are going to be there, who will, as well as our medical clinic, the free medical clinic is going to be there as well. And we want to tell them, here are things that can help you with Medicaid, programs that they might not be aware of that they're eligible for through those. And then we do have Golden State Foods, who's going to be there, who has a warehouse down 35 close to where Chicken Express is.
Right.
And they have openings right now. They've gone through kind of a reorganization. Their home office is in California, but they have a warehouse here. And they have some job openings. If you're out there and need a job, they start at $20 an hour and they pay benefits. We want to let people know those are options out there that they, can apply for and see if they're able to do. And then we're feeding them. We're going to have a bouncy challenge course. We're having some face painting for the children. Things that will just be kind of a carnival atmosphere to let them come and go. It's not real long. It's only from 10:30 to 12:30 on Saturday, the 23rd, and that will be on Promises parking lot, which is at 140 Northwest Renfro in Burleson, right off the intersection of Renfro and
right.
Yes.
Do you have a logo or something you could send us, and we'll put it up on the screen?
We do, Brad. I apologize. I forgot to send that to you, but I set out in the car when I got here and sent it to you. So hopefully you have that.
Well, let's see if I got it. Let's look on, because Taylor's real good about whipping it up on the screen pretty quickly. Come on. It takes me a while for my email to load.
Well, and I did it from my phone, which can take it a while to arrive, but it should be there. That's about 30 minutes ago.
Honey, I don't see it. I'm sorry.
I'll send it from my computer when I get back to the office.
Well, we'll put it in the rotation next week, and it'll get a start. In fact, I was going to send all you participants next Thursday show an email saying, "Hey, send me your stuff."
Yes.
And the sooner you do it, the better we're going to be. But as far as these jobs, I mean, if people are homeless or whatnot, how are they going to, or they don't have transportation, how are they going to access these jobs at Golden State?
Well, I do think that can be an issue, but if they can get on in the job, then we have things like mini mansions or Promises or Harvest House, where we might be able to partner together to help with you getting a used car, finding a way, Train, where we could buy you some coupons to ride that. So, we would like to help in that way, but the first step is to getting that job. We've had a couple of people who've applied and didn't meet the qualifications. So obviously we wouldn't work to get you a car until we know that you have that. But we can work. We have a connection at Golden State, and let them know that we are working for this person. If they meet your qualifications, let us help to make sure that we can do that to get them there.
Well, I know that one of the things that's been proposed and quickly shot down was public transportation. Somewhat, not in Burleson. We're not talking about subways, or something like that, but some sort of shuttle system, transit system, whatever else. But a lot of people don't really want that because they think it'll be a magnet for more people to come south and whatnot. So, because I've heard that from a couple of people in a position to know the conversations, I'll put it that way, that, they didn't really want that train station west of town because they didn't want people coming down. And then now it's Fort Worth's problem is our problem.
Right.
And again, that's not based in illogic. It's not even really based in prejudice. It's just the reality is it's like, what are we going to do with it? We don't have the resources for it.
Right.
And we don't want other cities pawning off the resources or their resource needy people on us kind of thing.
Exactly.
So it's not, that's what makes it so hard because it's not a black and white issue.
It is not. And I'm not ignorant of some of those issues. I struggle with some of that. I told you before, I don't know that I'm smart enough to solve it all. I don't think there's one thing that can solve it all. I think that we, still need to come together. I think whether you build that or not, there's going to be some aspect of people who do come here anyway. We've already proved that.
Right.
So how do we get ready for that? I lived in Austin at the time that it started growing, and it didn't want to grow, so it didn't. And then it became a nightmare for anybody to move in that city.
Physically, you mean, because of traffic? Oh,
yes.
It's awful.
Yes, still is, but it's better than what it was.
I can't imagine. It's been a couple of years since I've been in Austin, but if I can, I'll avoid it.
Yes,
for a lot of reasons. And they also had a policy that was much more permissive and lenient about homelessness, and now they got a real problem.
Yes, they do.
So it's not like the people that have these issues with it, it'd be wrong to categorize them as hard-hearted, but we have to do something.
Yeah. But, the clientele that we see, by far, most of them have transportation of some sort.
Okay.
It might not be very reliable to take a trip, to the Northeast, but it would get them back and forth from their home to work until they can start establishing. And so I know that we've been looking at our policies for helping with car repair, or if you're needing to get a vehicle, how do we do that effectively? So I think that there's some opportunity for some help. I think that most of them could probably get the job and start out having some way to get there. But certainly there'll be some of those that are an exception to that and don't have a way to get there.
Yeah. Well, let's hope Golden State is able to pick up some help and some people can get a decent job.
Exactly.
$20 an hour plus maybe some at least minimal health care benefits would probably be a godsend to some of these people.
Absolutely.
Because you probably also deal with our friends over at the Christian Physician Center, just right up the street from you.
Yes.
And, we have a couple of volunteers in our Sunday school class, and they are swamped.
Yes.
And this is the working poor. This isn't Medicaid. This is people that don't have any type of support system. And they tell me that they could be open. They're open like 3 days, sometimes 4 days a week. They could be open 24/7, and they would get plenty of business.
Yes.
And we need more of that. Because,
I agree.
Because it's it is. I'm not into Bernie Sanders socialized medicine stuff, but it really it does bother me that somebody can be working for $19, $20 an hour. And that's still inadequate because of all the other issues that they have to take care of. Right. Particularly in healthcare.
Yes. I agree. I agree.
My left-wing son has answers, but I don't like all of them. So,
well,
anyway.
If you're available on Saturday the 23rd between 10:30 and 12:30, come out and visit us. There'll be information there that hopefully you're going to find beneficial.
Well,
if not for you, for somebody you know.
Well, I'm definitely going to bring this up with Victoria and Adam next week after we talk about taxes, because I've talked about it with Victoria before. Is there going to be a city response? And I've asked her that more than once. And what I've noticed is that she in particular knows the problem.
Right.
But it's still, the wheels of bureaucracy grind slowly. And also changing of attitudes is even slower.
Exactly.
We do have a prevalent attitude amongst some anyway that, well, the homeless are there because they want to be there or they deserve to be there by some bizarre thing. And maybe there is some that have chosen that lifestyle, but the vast majority you see probably would not want to do that as a way of living.
Exactly.
Do you ever run across people say, no, I like living in the car?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Or I prefer to live out in a tent somewhere?
Exactly. I haven't ever met anybody who says that.
Well, okay.
I've been involved for a long time with a few that don't make changes. And if you don't make changes, that doesn't change. But no, people want to be out of that. And I would tell you there's people living in their car that work every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But they are not making enough. And there's that wait list for subsidized housing. So they are living in their car and still going to work every day. I don't know how anybody could say they're lazy.
Well, how much do drugs and alcohol play into some of these stories?
I don't know, haven't looked at it, but I would say that it probably plays into a large portion to some extent. Some can be slight, some could be severe. I would guess maybe about 80%, maybe more.
And some 80% of drugs or alcohol plays a role, whether large or small.
Yes. But don't you think there's probably a fairly significant percentage that it plays in people who are already working who aren't in that situation but have an alcohol or drug problem?
Oh, well, I don't know what the percentages would be, but you're right. Just because somebody has a house and a job doesn't mean
they don't have that.
They don't have that problem, certainly. And we've all known people that, you think have it put together and you find out they have a real problem. But I just wonder, there's sometimes, the drug problem in particular, does it cause this situation, or is it kind of like a response to this situation?
I don't know that I would know enough to know how it started, but I think in a lot of ways it's a response because there are places around where we have helped them to get help, or others open doors. Several of them have sent them to rehab, but then when they get back into the real life hits them again, and it's pretty easy to fall back onto those habits. So I think a lot of it is life happens and they haven't learned to deal with that.
Coping skills.
Yes. Which I think are desperately needed in America, period. But I think that it's certainly indicative of the challenges that they face in life, and then they start to believe that it's only them. And I think that's a deadly spiral down when you start thinking that way, because you and I have issues in life that we have to go through.
Absolutely. But you and I have been fortunate to have a support system through families and church and school and whatever else to help us deal with coping mechanisms. These people don't quite often. I'd like to end up on talking about the spiritual aspect of this mission, okay? Because I know it's part of First Baptist, but it's not. It's an evangelism tool in the sense that you're serving the community, but it's not like you have a revival meeting every day.
No, we don't.
All right. So,
But our volunteers do a lot of praying with our clientele.
is that on the clientele's choice?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, that's what I meant.
A lot of them will, when we help them take the groceries out to the car, they'll ask, "Can you pray with me?" And our volunteers do. So there is a spiritual aspect that's there. Most of our clients would tell you that they are believers, but they largely live without the hope that goes with that. We have even offered a Friday afternoon. We're not open on Friday for the pantry, so we offered that you could come here, and Dave Thompson was going to lead a kind of a support group with a little devotional. But we advertised it, talked to it. We sent out some letters to specific people saying we'd love to have you come, and we can't get anybody to come. So we would like to offer more than what's there, but the spiritual part that they get is our goal is to treat them with dignity and respect when they come in and shop. And by that, we start building, because they come in every month, you build that relationship to where they are saying, "Would you pray with me?" Or, "My mother's having surgery next week. Would you pray with me about that?" So we get a whole lot of that. And I will tell you, that's what keeps our volunteers coming back, even though they can be dog tired
I know.
after a day, is that they get to have that connection.
One article that really particularly infuriated me, actually, was that some of these faith-based institutions are using it as to proselytize unwilling people. I'm like, that is so untrue. That Jennifer will tell you, Megan will tell you over at Next Step, you tell me. It's up to the person receiving the aid how much spiritual counseling and prayer they are going. If they walk in, take their food, and go on their way, it's not like, wait a minute, you owe us something. Come over here, we're going to pray for you, dadgummit.
Right.
It didn't work that way.
No.
And I just get really upset, particularly when Megan tells they get a lot of criticism because they think they're basically a front to, proselytize these women in dire situations and like that. That is cruel and
right.
wrong and so untrue. That the truth is that the people that come in, it's up to them whether they want to have a spiritual conversation or not.
I absolutely agree. Number one, I don't want any of us to ever act like they have to do the spiritual part in order to get food. We have a ministry of providing food to those who need it, and we want to do that.
Right.
But I agree with you, and we have people who come in from all different religions. I have some Jewish people who come in, Seventh-day Adventists that come in. They come on a regular basis. We're not trying to change them from their religion. We're trying to treat them with dignity and respect and give them food. Because in reality, I don't believe that it is my responsibility to lead them. Scripture tells me if I lift up Jesus, Jesus will bring people to him. I don't need to do that. But there could be a saved Jew. There could be, that is not our goal. Our goal is not to shove the gospel down their throat. Our goal is to love them and let them know that there are people who care for them. So that is our mission.
Yes, and that's the true evangelism type of message that they're going to receive.
It's what Jesus did.
Yes, exactly. And so people sometimes,
yes,
I hear, and this is just, from listening to y'all talk, they're reluctant to come into y'all or other faith-based institutions because they're going to be afraid they're going to be made to feel guilty.
Yes.
And from all I've heard from you, Jennifer, Megan, Sarah, you break your back to prevent that from happening.
Right.
You're not there to provide a shame or a guilt trip on these people.
Exactly.
And I've seen some idiots on Facebook post stuff like that. I'm like, I won't repeat what I said when I saw that being a family rated show, but I thought, my God, how cynical must you be?
Yes.
Because as I've done this show and I've gotten to know all y'all pretty well, y'all are the true servants of Christ, but you're not going to try to recruit more of the same.
Right.
Now, do you have people that come in and say, "Hey, we want to talk about the Lord," and things like that? Yeah,
absolutely. And we have people who will talk with them, pray with them, counsel them, mentor them over weeks if that's what's needed. But they would have to approach that subject. We don't approach that. We love them. I had a young man who was in shopping, I guess it's been about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. And I think he epitomizes what I hope that all feel from Promises, which he is shopping and going down the aisle. Like I said, we have a host shopper for every client or neighbor. And he was picking some items and he looked at her and said, "I love coming to this pantry." And she goes, "Well, thank you." She said, "Can you tell me why?" And he thought for a minute and he goes, "Because you make me feel like family." That to me is what any charitable pantry should be doing is we want these people to get food and we want them to feel good about that. So I love that testimony from somebody who actually comes. And he was young. He wasn't an older one of our clients, a younger and actually homeless, but he was telling us, I don't just get food, I get to be fed like I'm family.
This kind of, and maybe late in the show to ask this, but if there's somebody who's homeless, how do they prepare the food?
We know they will tell us they're homeless, and we give them food specific for them.
Okay. So, I mean,
we also allow them to come more often because they can't store it.
Right.
So we allow homeless people to come every week because they'll leave with less this week. But, QT lets them come in and heat up food. Some of the other stores do too. So we try to make sure that we're giving them things that are prepared, or some that are living along that little creek. They build fires at night and cook.
I'm just thinking, if you're living out of your car, how are you going to prepare a meal?
Yeah, they don't. And they don't have a good, healthy diet because snacks are mostly what you get.
Yes. That to me also is like, a lot of the poor, their health and their diet has got to be just terrible. And I feel really bad for them because it's not cheap to eat well. I'm buying organic, I'm buying lean meat. Well, you got the wallet for that. Most people, for them, they got just enough money maybe to go through McDonald's. Right. And that ain't healthy.
No.
And so, or you got somebody working 2 jobs and so they're, preparing stuff out of a can all the time. And just,
we had a lady who was living in her car and eating like you. She got some disability, not much, that she could put gas in her car, but she couldn't even live that all the time. But it's so unhealthy. Her legs were about twice the size that they should be. We were sending her to the hospital and stuff because she needed to be seen. It was horrendous. Eventually, over a number of months, we were able to help her get into a place. And shout out to Burleson Police Department. Some of the officers came over, packed up stuff from a storage unit, and helped her get moved in there. So, and trust me, it was not going to be a pleasant day because the van she was living in did not smell well because you're living in a van.
Right.
And then you've got this horrendous infection and stuff in your legs. So it is absolutely horrendous what it does to their body, but at least it gets something in their belly. And so they do take a lot of snack things, fresh fruit, produce. If we have that, they will take more of that. But you're right, we have to give them an opportunity to come more often because they don't have room to store it.
Well, we're getting close on time, and so here's a couple of things. I've been promoting this for a little while. Next Thursday, you get to see all your friends.
Yes.
And it's always a nice thing. I always enjoy doing the nonprofits, but sometimes the stories I'll bring are sobering.
Yeah.
And it's, I think as a community, every time you and I talk, or Jennifer and I talk, or Lisa and I talk, or Megan and I talk, I just think we're just one more step closer to this. A community, we're going to have to take a communal action.
Yes.
And not just rely on the churches and all to do stuff.
I agree.
Yeah. And so, but, they don't listen to me in politics.
Well, they don't listen to me either, but I do think partnering is a better way to go, that we can hopefully reach some solutions that we can work towards.
I sure appreciate you being here. Anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
I think that's it, Brad. Thanks so much for letting me come again.
All right. We'll see you all Thursday. And also next week, Monday, I'm going to be talking about this Joe Biden impeachment thing. It's a very odd thing. I have a couple opinions that may not be what you expect. Also on Tuesday, again, I have Victoria and Adam from the City Council. And I'm looking forward to all that next week. Taylor, you doing okay over there?
We're good.
As always. All right. So we'll see y'all next week.